Mabel came home during COVID. So we were just talking offline about that, about how she hasn't been to the office yet, but she's a community health worker in the reentry department at East Valley Community Health Center. So I just want to give everyone a few minutes to introduce themselves and tell us what's going on. JD, do you want to start?
Yes. Hey, Norma and everyone. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. I became acclimated with ARC in 2014, I think it was. I was reading an article on the train going to work about this nonprofit called ARC, and within a few days, I went to ARC where we were on Hill Street at that time, and I became a member, and I've been involved ever since, specifically facilitating a sober group for 2 years, once a week. I am also formerly incarcerated. The last time I've been in prison was in 2005. Since then, I've had my ups and downs, but I haven't been back, and I am now I've been doing paralegal work for the last, I don't know, almost 15 years now. And I've gone to college, and I'm finally getting my degree in legal studies in about 4 months. So, I'm still pushing on. And thank you for having me here.
Thanks, JD.
Thank you, JD.
Thank you.
Alyssa, what about you?
Yes, I was introduced to ARC by a good friend, Greg. I was in a housing situation at the time, right in the middle of dealing with that. And somebody said ARC, and I don't know, it sparked my interest, especially with, when I heard ARC, I think, Noah's Ark or whatever. So I was just curious to see what, ARC meant by ARC or whatever. So I go into the office, I meet everybody, I get well acquainted with, what ARC's mission was. And I kind of fell in love from then on, because I just liked the work that ARC did, and especially the work that they're doing now, and witnessing the growth. And I just wanted to become a part of that. And thankfully, I was able to experience reentry firsthand without any assistance, which kind of gave me the opportunity to fix my own situation, which I was very driven to do. And now I'm here, and I feel that I'm able to use my position to do the same. As I needed help, there's other people out there that needed help. So that's what I do now. So here I am.
Wow, thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Of course.
And Mabel?
Hi, everybody. My name is Mabel. So I was released in April 6th, and I have been incarcerated for almost 7 years. And when I came out, everything was shut down, and it was scary because there was nobody in the streets, and it was raining that day. And I was supposed to go to a program in LA, the Menlo House, and they didn't want to take me in because of COVID. And I was, I went through a little crisis right there because I didn't have nowhere to go. And then finally, 3 weeks later, I got into Menlo, and I met this girl named Celia, and she started talking to me about ARC. She was doing meetings and stuff, and I was really going through it because we weren't allowed to go nowhere. We were locked up, and I was just stressed out because I was like, I don't want to get to a point where I get depressed and I get in that stage. So right. I started joining the meetings at ARC and the non-binary women meetings, and they really they changed my whole mood and everything, because it helps a lot to be able to be in a group with people that you have things in common with and have been through things that you were going through. So that's how I met Norma, and I kept coming to the meetings. And while I graduated, I haven't had the pleasure to go meet the office and everybody else in person or nothing like that. I'm really looking forward to that. But so I graduated the program, and I wasn't going to go to sober living, but I talked to my parents. I was able to come back home. And then I was struggling a little bit to find work. And I kept, for some reason, I kept clinging to Norma a lot. And I kept looking for her. And then, you know, she sent me a couple of links. And she sent me this one for the East Valley Community Health Worker. And I applied. And it took them a while to call me. And then finally I did my first interview, my second interview. And I've been with them since September 8th. And I think that, you know, my life is in a good place. I help people coming out of prison or the county. And I think the most challenging thing for me to do is getting them to trust me. Because, you know, they've been through so much, but I have 15 people in my caseload right now, and I have 15 post-release, and I love my job, and I love the way my life is right now and how things are going with not just my life, but in general.
That's
and,
awesome.
You know, and I'm also excited that we're able to vote again.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
it's so good to hear from you, Mabel, and those of us in the women and non-binary department have followed your coming home and through all of your ups and downs, because you've always been so open about everything. And it's been exciting to watch you grow and watch you during COVID, you know, find a job and be able to feel that security. So it's amazing. Thank you to all three of you for being here. So we'll get into our discussion now, but I wanted to also talk about the department, the women's and non-binary department. So that is something that ARC saw a need, because women and women who gender non-conforming individuals and women often have different needs. So ARC saw that need and developed this program that started about a year ago. And what I love about it is I love the name, because it's inclusive and it includes everybody in it. And that's what ARC is about. We are about coming together, all of us formerly incarcerated, especially now with our new political power. It is about us coming together, and we want to be inclusive of all of our formerly incarcerated people. And so to use that non-binary name is just adding that extra layer of, hey, you're included. We want you here. You belong here. And so that's what leads us here today. So I wanted to ask each of you, and you guys can kind of jump in as you would like, but I wanted to know how being a member of the LGBTQ community, how did that affect or have an impact on your incarceration or circumstances? So JD, look, I know JD and we've been friends for a long time, so I'm like, I know JD, he got this one. So JD, you want to answer? You want to talk about this?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's definitely been challenging. When I was doing time, I was in some way kind of like still in denial about, about my sexuality. And it was already ingrained in me since I was a little kid, because I had, the Latino thing going on where, that's very frowned upon in the culture. And I also, my mom raised us as Jehovah's Witnesses. So gay was just like, you're done.
Right.
And then I also, had that aspect where I was in a gang. So, and that's also not tolerated, and so as a little kid, I always knew that there was something wrong with me, and I didn't know what it was. Looking back, I remember walking home from school one day and I was like in the 4th or 5th grade, I think. And I was asking myself, why do all my friends like Stephanie, but I think I like Joey? And I had like no idea that there was a name for it, or I didn't know anyone that was going through the same thing. So I learned how to live a lie, basically, and I got very good at it. And in ways that manifested was trying to prove my machismo through, violence and, who can, outdo the other gang rival, proving my manhood by going to prison and, walking the yards and doing the riots and, but still so lost with no sense of direction. And that was a secret that I thought that I was always going to take to my death. That was my fucking secret and no one was going to know about it. And it almost killed me because it kept me sick with drugs and alcohol for many, many years. But I've also, more specifically in connection with ARC, how that all kind of turned. I used to walk in prison and no one would suspect that I was gay. And I also knew of the consequences because of the political culture that goes inside the prison politics. So I was well aware of the consequences. So fast forward, here I am at ARC in 2000, and I think 15 was when I really started to be active and more inclusive in the different classes that ARC offered. So when I was offered to be a facilitator on Thursday night, it was on Monday nights at that time, after work, I said, absolutely, I'll do it. So that kind of like pushed me to face this population formerly incarcerated. And I worked so hard to stay away from that world. And I thought that once I did my time and everything was done and over with, I never wanted to look back, and I wanted to shut the door on that chapter of my life. And yet here I was volunteering to open that door again and expose myself and to that culture. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. But I can honestly say that being asked to be of service in that capacity of speaking to former gang members, whether, female or male, ARC gave me a newfound freedom, because when we're discussing drugs and alcohol, it gets pretty raw. And we have to be upright honest, because as they say, they discourage like when you're holding back, because those are things that you need to let go in order to, move forward with your life and find new levels of freedom. And I discovered that at ARC. So when I was looking at this group of guys and I was like, this is what I went through and this is who I am today. And I received nothing but love and respect. To this day, I have never, been disrespected by anybody at ARC. We've shared meals, we've traveled together with other members, working one-on-one through the mentorship program. And I never thought that would be possible. I didn't think that people would just love me just for being me, because I too had to let go of my own inner homophobia and my my habit of trying to control this image. So ARC did that for me. They really did. And then once I started to give back, the universe started to give back as well. And now I'm on a full college scholarship tuition at National University, and there is absolutely like no way possible that could have happened had I not been doing the right things at that particular time in my life, and having a team of people, including you, Norma. How many times have we had these one-on-one conversations? And that's what LA and ARC has done. It's given me those wings to fly and to soar and to thrive, and not just I would say more than anything to just live in my truth and own it. And that's been the most beautiful thing.
Jay, just want to share something. So I don't know if you know this, JD, but you literally are the reason why we were able to continue with our addiction support group, because we were trying to find a member that could not just facilitate it, but had the skill set. And I remember you would come in, you would have the entire lesson plan planned out. You'd be ready, and literally it was engaging. And so just wanted you to know, like, that was, we had just started the addiction support group, and you took over it and allowed it to grow under your leadership. So I want to just tell you, shout you out for that and tell you we appreciate you for that. Because I was just thinking that was way back on when we were on Hill Street before you went to the row. So,
Yeah.
so if you didn't know that, you were the reason why it grew.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
And just, yeah, you've just also been like such a role model for other people, JD, that just the way that you show up and like how respectful you are of everybody from all walks of life has just, you've just been a great role model for a lot of people that, you know, did for a long time. They were gone and they were out of this world and may have said, or, you know, said things that weren't always like politically correct. You've always like acted with grace and kindness. And I've always loved that about you and Tita, but Tita is JD's dog, for those of you that are not in the know of Tita.
You have to get the
That
dog
is the picture by my desk is Tita. I have a picture of her. But I would like to hear from Alyssa and Mabel also. Alyssa, maybe about your experiences with incarceration and the being in part of this community. What are your thoughts?
Yes. Well, when I was younger, I was totally unaware of the LGBT community. I didn't understand it. I didn't know anything about it. I was one of those people that kind of looked at you know, the community, not knowing that I'm looking at the community in a weird way or a judgmental way. And it was all due to me having a lack of understanding or education regarding, you know, the community as a whole. And so I was kind of forced to live my life through other people's eyes. So I would just, you know, now and then I would pick stuff here and there, you know, from people that I liked, or, you know, personality traits that I liked within people that I knew or that I met. So growing up, that kind of elevated, and it got bigger, and, you know, issues when somebody gets older became very big for me, where Alyssa started to pop out, you know, and I would try to like close the door, shove her back in to the closet, and, you know, there she would go again, popping out. And so I saw this to be a real problem. So I got scared. I didn't know what to do. So I reached out to a friend of mine. Even this person, he was like the only gay person that I knew. His name was Boogie. And I tried to relay my concerns with him, and he didn't really understand, you know, transgender, or, you know, I didn't even know how to convey what I was going through to him. And then a year later, a guy gets sent to me, and he kind of like interacted with me in a way to where I was comfortable enough to be who I needed to be at that time. And then that was shortly after that was the birth of Alyssa. And in incarceration, I would say I experienced, as I know that, you know, Mabel can attest to a lot of the stuff that we dealt with in prison, stuff like always being misgendered. We would always be judged upon our race, you know, our gender, and also regular services that inmates are allowed to have within the prison system, with, you know, programming and education and stuff like that. But we didn't necessarily have these opportunities, not because we were denied. It was more due to the fact of the people that were facilitating these resources. they were in the position to almost kind of, you know, give a yay or a nay
Yeah.
on whether we could go to access these resources. And that was the huge problem that I saw. So I felt like we were triple marginalized, you know, not only from being an outsider, but, you know, there's an extra judgment that we had, that we kind of had to like jump over, you know, just to be a regular inmate. And I mean, it would come from prison staff, COs even. I know Mabel probably remembers, we had a captain at one of the prison facilities that, you know, he did not like us, and he made it known, you know, over the whole entire yard. But we kind of, you know, grabbed hands and you know, formed a transgender group to show everybody that, you know, we're here, and we want to form some way of support for us, so that way you guys can take us serious, you know.
That's amazing.
But yeah, that was, yeah.
That's so beautiful. That's how so many of us that are marginalized, just even formerly incarcerated, like the part of like what ARC is all about, is about us forming together and using all of our numbers together to get rights for us, so that
Right.
we can be a part of this dream in the United States, and just to be able to have that freedom, you know.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Mabel,
Yeah.
what about you? Did being a part of the LGBTQ community, did that affect you in some way with your incarceration or experience?
Of course, yeah, it did. It affected me in the way that, well, it was hard because it was, I was going through a lot in prison, and in the beginning, just being able to accept myself and come out to who I truly am and my identity, it must have been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But I did it, and yeah, like Alyssa said, there was, in the beginning when I got there, I think Alyssa was still at SADF, but I had a friend in there, and we used to be harassed. That same captain that she's talking about and his staff, they were really bad. They knew that we were transgender, so when we would walk out, and I used to try to avoid going out at yard, because there was these cops that were just really like complete assholes, excuse my language. But I remember that that day, me and my friend Michaela were walking on the track, and we had our CD players, and I remember at that time I was still learning how to put eyeliner. So I wasn't like, I probably looked, I don't know, but so there was this one cop, there was two of them. There was a really tall one and a short one. I remember the names, but there's no use in saying them. And they pulled us over, right? They flashed the light like that in our faces, and they're like, "You two, come here."
Ugh.
And they knew that we had preferred pronouns. They took our CD players, they threw them on the floor. They're all, spread your legs, and put your hands up like this in your head. They searched us, and then they took our IDs actually, and they're like, "All right, Guillermo." And then he's like, and then the other one did it to Michaela, called her by her government name, and it was very like, it was that moment. That's something I'll never forget, because it's like you're in a place where you have no control over nothing. I'm sorry.
No, I absolutely understand. when you're talking, like I was thinking, and I've talked about this at ARC, and I know other women have too, how women in general, how much we're disrespected in prison. And when you said that, like, come here, you two, like, I felt that. Like, I felt that feeling. And like you said, hand me your IDs. Like, I haven't heard those words in a long time. And when you were talking about it, I was like, oh, like I was like flinching inside. I was like, oh my God, I remember that. And I know exactly what you're saying, because we saw that a lot, in the where I was, that anybody who was different, or anybody that was not part of, their club, or people who didn't really want to engage with them in like a flirtatious way, were treated like that. And to disrespect people with words is, I feel like that's like such a trauma that still lives with us, and it carries on, and it really stunts us, often from growing. And we need a safe place to talk about it, and people need to hear about what you've been through, Mabel. And I'm so appreciative of you sharing that, because I think people don't understand. Everyone's had different experiences, and it's really appreciate you sharing that.
Maybe I also want to thank you for being vulnerable. And I want to ask JD, Alyssa, maybe I want to ask all three of you to do something that will take a little bit of effort and heart that I know you have. Every year we get together to determine what our policies will look like, or our legislative cycle, what policies we want to pass inside the Department of Corrections and just in our criminal justice system in general. And I would love for you to join our policy team in looking at ways to make the system better for our LGBTQ community. We are free now, and we have the power of advocacy to be able to change how things are done. And with our collective voices to support each other, I don't think there's much we can't do. So just know, like, I would like for you to really think and join Esteban, who's our state policy coordinator or director. Let's see how we can make it better for those that are inside right now and those that are coming home. Like, literally, think of yourselves as the voices of the people that can't speak for themselves. Like when they stopped you that day, that shouldn't happen. And we have a collective voice in advocacy space, and we have elected officials that will support this. I know this is Transgender Week, if people don't know. I know Kamala Dove announced it and shouted out. Kamala Dove is an assembly member who was just reelected, and she will be running for Senate. And I think this is something that, one, we have the power to change, but we'll need you to help lead this and figure out like what changes and how do we make that happen.
Yes, I would love to be a part of that.
Yes. And then if
Me as well.
you actually think of anything, you can send it to me. I mean, definitely like be a part of policy either, but I'm trying to add things on to the policy with Esteban and Michael Mendoza about some things that affect in the women's prison, but also for the transgender population or the LGBTQ, like whatever. Let's work on it, like Sam was talking about. But along those lines too, my next question would be just to ask you about some of the challenges that you faced in reentry. Like, I know, because I know, I'm like, I know everybody's side. It's like, I already know the answers, but I'm like, oh, you guys are like, why do you keep asking me stuff you know? But about just the challenges, like I know we've all had challenges about housing, but being re-entered, of being formerly incarcerated, there's a lot behind that. But what about in the LGBTQ community? Is there more, or are there less resources?
And please remember this too. It's just us on this Zoom right now, but we record this, it's posted on YouTube, and we get thousands of hits. So it's like literally your voice is going to be amplified and people will reach out. For instance, just to share real quickly, and then I want to give it back to y'all. From I believe it was Teresa, this is a direct message. She says, I'm sorry that you experienced abuse and were marginalized when all of your rights were taken from you. What are the best ways we can protect the LGBT community? I believe that we can offer ways of healing. What practices can we offer you for healing? What are the ways we can stop this? We are here and we want to help you and value and want you to know we value as human beings and a unique view of the world that you have. So that's just one person. Want you to know, like literally, you will get thousands of views on this. And so your voice will be amplified. So when you talk about your experiences, though we might know it, there are people that don't know. So you're talking to an audience that you can persuade to step up and support our community.
Yes, definitely. One example I wanted to share was when I was working with an ARC member one-on-one in the mentorship program. I was also supporting, his journey to recovery and sobriety. Years later, he happened to relapse, and he and I worked on getting him into treatment, and he completed his treatment. And one thing that struck me when we were celebrating his first year anniversary of sobriety, where he told me in private, he said, never in my life would I have thought that a gay guy saved my life. And he also went on to tell me how there was this bully in the treatment center. He was totally, very homophobic, and he was bullying one of his roommates or whatnot. And he stepped up and said, you know what, my sponsor is gay and there's nothing wrong with him. Like, it's all good. Like, why are you treating him that way? So I think that's how it starts, when we have that, how we carry ourselves in the world. And how we show up for people and how we show up for ourselves. And I think that ultimately, I think in a way it's going to get better in society as a whole, because a lot of my friends have kids and they bring their kids around me, and, their kids know that, that I have a boyfriend, or I might not have a boyfriend, whatever. They know I'm not straight. So these kids are being raised as, oh, that's my mom's friend, or that's my uncle, that's my brother, So it's going to get better that way. But I feel that for those of us who have been formerly incarcerated and affiliated and knowledgeable of the politics behind those walls, I definitely feel that we need some work in that, because that politics, it's very deep, but I know that those walls can also be penetrated by educating those who are coming out, and thank God for Norma's program as well. But I know that there are many guys who are going through the same thing that I went through, and who were feeling what I was feeling, and who just wanted to freaking die because there was no hope and there was no one there to talk to. And when you feel so alone, and you're stuck somewhere where you have you can't leave, it's also very traumatizing. But absolutely, we still have some work to do, especially with our younger ones. They're still doing that lingo. Oh man, that's hella gay, bro. Or or like fuck, or like what's up, faggot? Things like that. They don't know the effects. They don't know of what they're saying is. It does impact people, and I don't get offended by it today anymore. I don't let it get to me. But, I think with a little bit of resources, education, but most importantly, just with a little bit of love, we can go a long way as well. And I'm definitely interested in looking at that policy exam.
Right, so just so y'all know, I just want to give y'all a quick, just a view. We have viewers from NYC that have tapped in, and from Washington State that are giving comments in the chat if you want to look. Just so that's how far your voices are reaching. The power of your voice, the power of your story is reaching out, is touching people. So know that vulnerability, that honesty, that strength that you show, it's being heard, okay? So know that, and know that you have a community here at ARC that's going to support you every step of the way. I'm sorry, Norma, go ahead, Norma.
No, I was just going to say to JD that I know that what you're saying, like how some people are not, like they say things that may be offensive. And I think that's an issue with people who are incarcerated, because it's a very, it's an abusive system. It's meant to dehumanize. It's meant to turn us against each other. That's what the system is there. That's what it's meant for. And so we have to really fight against that. And we have to make our space a safe space where that is not tolerated, where we want freedom for every person. We want you to be free to be who you want to be. And Alyssa, Mabel, Sam, all of us to be free for who we really were intended to be. And so that language is not, our language needs to be inclusive of that also. And our language, whether it's at ARC or in our communities or whatever circles that we go into, we need to be mindful of being inclusive of everybody, because that's their freedom. Like we heard today, that is their freedom. And we all certainly know what it feels like not to have a freedom. So Alyssa and Mabel, do you want to chime in about some challenges you may have faced coming home from reentry?
You want to go first, Alyssa?
Sure. Mine was, as you're well knowing, Norma, mine was related to housing, but it was having to do with the staff at the housing. It was actually the head of staff, and I could just tell by how I was being treated that I was being treated unfairly. And it might have been the fact that I was the only transgender woman in an all-male lifers housing program. But in my incarceration, I had gained the ability to understand the mindset of a lifer, and enough to where I could, interact successfully with them and gain their respect. So I had the respect of the whole house, except for one of the staff members. I was constantly talked down to. I was checked up on constantly as though I was doing something wrong, or engaging with people in a wrong way. Anything that this person could hold against me, she was looking for it. And it was difficult in the way that it happened, because everything else was going so great, and then boom, I'm kicked out of this housing program, and now I'm kind of sorry.
That's okay, Alyssa. I remember those times when you were going through that. It was really rough. It was really rough for all of us, because you were really like a pioneer at ARC. And so you really opened that door for us to sort of see what was going on in the reentry space, about not having space for you.
Yeah, I mean, I learned very quickly that if there's no space, I have to be the one to make my own space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then in that same thought, I would think of people like Mabel that also are gonna need somebody to reach out to when they get out, because I've already navigated for all of us. I made it my job to. So that way when Mabel comes out, there's stuff that I can like help her with resources, with people that she can feel comfortable reaching out to. Just to have a conversation. Not necessarily pretending to help. I mean, I'm grateful that I was, I guess, used to, you know, when I'm trying to navigate doors that may be open or closed, I figured out in a very short time that I was supposed to become one. So, you know, that's the reason for me still being in this field, you know, somewhat or as much as possible.
Alyssa, when you talk about being in this field, there's something else I want to point out and share with everyone. And if they've paid attention to ARC's social media, you were incredibly involved in the passing of ACA 6 state legislation that led to Prop 17. And you were highlighted multiple times and had discussions about Prop 17 passing voting rights for people that were on parole. So in that sense, you were also a pioneer because you went to the state legislature when we were trying to get it passed to make it a proposition. And so you were hugely impactful and want to know, I'd like to know, like, what was that like, the advocacy space that you were in to be able to, one, help get it passed out of the state legislature and become a proposition, and then the advocacy work you did, because you were on some videos, on some panels, speaking of what does it feel like to be able to advocate for the passage of that, but also not being able to vote prior to the passage of Prop 17.
I knew that when I was invited to these events, that was a privilege to me, like to kind of act as like a face for us, like, you know, because I was wanting to know, is there anybody like myself that advocates in the aggressive physical form, like actually going to these events, actually showing face, actually having conversations. I wanted to know, like, what, you know, what's out there. And so just to be invited to these events was huge. Like I knew that was a big deal. It was important for, you know, for us to be represented in this way, you know, and for other women like myself to witness this happening. You know, I think it's so important because, you know, especially like a meeting like this, it invites other people to want to join the party and to want to get involved. And so I see it as like a huge privilege to be a part of an organization where, you know, people like myself are able to attend very influential spaces, such as ARC, such as, you know, the Capitol building, and the discussions that we would have with, you know, people in high places, legislators and, you know, their assistants, you know, and stuff like that. It was a very eye-opening and like a eye-opening journey for me.
So first, it's an honor for ARC to have members like you all, first of all. Just know that you're part of this community, you're part of this family. If you need a little bit of help putting some elbows out, let me know to make space. We can do that too. And continuing with the process of policy change and legislation, and want to ask all three of you to chime in on this briefly. In the past election, it resulted in a record number of LGBTQ community members being elected into office, one, and reforms that passed with overwhelming support of what are some of the things you'd like to see or see more of in the legislative and governmental level. Each one of you, please give me a couple examples of what you would like to see, and also how can we be more impactful for our LGBTQ community. And again, thank you for the heart and the vulnerability that you've you're sharing here. It's going to reach a lot of people, and this will continue to be something that we'll do to uplift your voices. But to the question, please. Mabel, you want to go first? Listen.
Can you pose the question again?
So this past election, a record number of LGBT community members have been elected in office, and in criminal justice reform being passed had overwhelming support across the state of California and nationally. What are some of the things you'd like to see more of at a legislative and government level?
Well, I mean, first off, I think it's amazing that the community is being recognized, especially from the top down. I think that's the best way to do it. If we're going to have these conversations, to influence the future, I just think it's really good to see these representations at such a high level, because that's going to quiet the storm, right? In many aspects, especially in I like what Nicole said. She in the comments, she said, change the language, change the discussion, change the culture for inclusion and acceptance for all neuro individuals and human beings. Language is the most important thing, because that's how we communicate, that's how we interact. And people globally understanding how to correctly identify us will do so much good for everybody, because once everybody understands our community better, it'll be easier for our community to be incorporated, at the same level as other communities, to where we can just exist together.
Mabel, what type of government? Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you for that. Mabel, what type of governmental or legislative things would you like to see?
I agree with what Alyssa said. I think that, recognizing and just being able to be seen and recognized equally as everybody else, because ultimately that's what we want. We just want to have the same rights. We want to be respected, and we want to be able to feel that we're not looked at different in any kind of way. So I think that equality and recognition, because we're here and we're real, we exist, we're different, but we bleed and we breathe like everybody else.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mabel. JD, what would you like to see legislatively and governmentally?
Well, I think currently that we're heading in the right direction. With the previous administration, it still baffles me when the president was exclusively pointing out the transgenders in the military, where they were saying, we don't want you to serve our country because it's costing too much money to pay your medical bills. But then they're giving up their life for the country. And also so many other things that I feel that I just feel so hopeful about. I definitely think that funding, housing, education at a state and a local level would probably be more ideal in order to help each other grow and help each other succeed. Like, I'm still learning about, what it's like for my transgender brothers and sisters, to see what they go through. They go through a whole other obstacles that I'm not even aware of, So we have a lot of things against us in this specific environment. We have, we're convicted felons. Most of us are people of color. There's so much that is intended to hold us down from succeeding in this society. But I also think that we're all going to come together, and we just got to be able to be more specific about what we want. So I would say more funding in education, housing at a local level, especially in our bigger counties and rural areas as well, where not many people have access to support. Maybe let's say like in small town Nebraska, or like in Chico, California, you know? So we want those resources out there everywhere.
Thank you, JD. Thank you so much. Thank you all for putting your heart out here. We're going to continue to push forward. Remember, Alyssa, JD, maybe Monday night is our policy training and everything. Like, y'all know how to tap in and make sure that you're part of the legislative work that we're doing also, because that also leads to stuff like housing. When we talk about having housing specifically for our transgender or our LGBTQ community, we need to make sure that we can push policy that way in order for that funding to be available. We're almost at time, so I'd like to ask each one of you to give closing thoughts for our audience that's listening and that have been consistent listening and adding comments. So Mabel, you want to go first? Last thoughts for our audience?
You know, I just want to say that, you know, my experience made me mature in a forcefully way, but it's all for the better. I mean, the way I view life and the things that I want to accomplish are like things that I would never think about in the past. But just being here today, sober, free, and have rights makes me feel like the sky's the limit, because my persona count, and I'm here today. And I just want to thank everybody for giving me this opportunity, and thank you.
Thank you. JD, last thoughts for our audience?
I would probably say faith is nothing until it's tested. So we all just got to be strong and hang in there for each other.
Absolutely. Thank you, JD. Appreciate you. Alyssa, last thoughts for our audience?
Yes, I actually second what Jonathan said. You know, nothing really matters until you're in the heat of the moment, right? But, you know, when we have meetings like this, where we're talking about issues like this, it's proof that we're on this journey of progress to, to reach success regarding influencing the world to see everyone equally. That's the whole point.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys. Thank ARC.
So ARC is
for this.
So Alyssa, thank you. So just oftentimes people say like you just said, thank ARC. ARC is us, formerly incarcerated. Like always think of it in terms of like, this is a support network meant to support each other as we all go through different things, but things that are also similar. So just want to know that like ARC is you, ARC is JD, ARC is Norma, ARC is me, ARC is Mabel, ARC is all of our people that are still behind the walls that are going to come home, and all the people that have come home. Like literally think of it in those terms. But thank you again, Alyssa. Appreciate you. Norma, last thoughts for our audience?
Last thoughts are that the LGBTQ is our community, formerly incarcerated, and I want to live in a world where their lived experience is part of our fabric and part of us, and that they feel honored when they come in these spaces. And so I appreciate you guys. This is what we're going to do when we're not on Zooms anymore. We're just going to all walk around like. But I appreciate you guys. I loved seeing you all today. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
My last thoughts for our audience are simply the thoughts that go all the way back to Martin Luther King. If we're not equal for everybody, then we all lose. Like we have to be equal for everyone. And that means our LGBTQ community, every race, every gender, every non-conforming person, like we have to have equality for human beings, for people, period. And until we reach that point in this country, we're going to always be at a place where it can't be better for our children. And so I ask everyone that's out there that's listening that will see this later on to remember that until there's equality across the board, like we'll never live in the type of country that we could live in. I want to thank you all for attending, for your heart, for your vulnerability. We appreciate you. Let's keep pushing it forward. Don't forget policy. Policy changes things, and we can do that.
Yep.
Everybody that's listening, take care. God bless, and stay safe.